December 1941. The Japanese Empire, with its powerful navy, launched a surprise attack on America's military base at Pearl Harbor. Around 8 o'clock in the morning, the peaceful harbor was suddenly filled with the roar of Japanese aircraft. Most American sailors were either asleep or having breakfast. Within minutes, explosions, smoke, and flames shattered the calm. Giant American battleships such as Arizona and Oklahoma sank to the ocean floor. Thousands of soldiers lost their lives. For America, this was the official beginning of the war. After Pearl Harbor, the United States began to mobilize all its strength. President Roosevelt addressed the nation. "This is a day of infamy." The U.S. formally entered the war. The Japanese fleet, elated by its first victory, continued its advance into Asia and the Pacific. 1942. The Pacific became filled with bloody battles. The Battle of the Coral Sea was the first naval clash in history fought entirely by aircraft carriers. The opposing fleets never saw each other directly. Strikes were carried out only by planes. The Japanese at first held the upper hand, but the Americans did not back down. This battle marked the beginning of halting Japanese expansion. That summer, the struggle for Midway began. The Japanese hoped to surprise the Americans, but U.S. intelligence uncovered their plan. As a result, four Japanese aircraft carriers were sunk in a single day. This was the turning point of the war. The Japanese Navy would never again be the dominant force it once was. Yet the battles raged on. In August 1942, the bloody campaign for Guadalcanal began. Swamps, jungles, hunger, and disease were the soldiers' daily companions. Japanese troops fought to the last man. Gradually, the Americans took control of the island, forcing the Japanese army to retreat. In the following years, the United States launched its island-hopping strategy. Each small island in the Pacific became the site of fierce combat. In 1943, thousands of soldiers died in just 3 days at Tarawa. In 1944, the battles for Saipan, Guam, and Tinian brought the Americans closer to Japan itself. That same year, in the Battle of the Philippine Sea, American aviation crushed the Japanese fleet. The battle entered history as the Great Marianas Turkey Shoot. U.S. pilots shot down hundreds of Japanese planes. The Japanese realized they could no longer compete in the skies. 1945. The Battle of Iwo Jima began. This tiny island held enormous strategic importance for the U.S. The Japanese defended it with underground fortifications, making every meter of ground cost blood. In the 36-day struggle, over 20,000 Japanese soldiers were killed. American losses were also extremely heavy. But once the island was secured, the U.S. flag was raised atop Mount Suribachi, a moment forever etched in history. That April, the Battle of Okinawa began. This was the bloodiest clash, fought on land closest to Japan itself. The Japanese employed kamikazes, suicide pilots. Thousands of them hurled themselves at American ships, setting the sea ablaze. Yet the U.S., with its overwhelming military might, captured the island. Japan still refused to surrender. But its economy was in ruins, its fleet and air force destroyed. American bombers leveled Tokyo and other cities. Toward the end of the war, atomic bombs were dropped on Hiroshima and Nagasaki. Hundreds of thousands of civilians perished. Japan no longer had the strength to continue fighting. In September 1945, the Japanese Empire officially capitulated. The bloody war in the Pacific was over. Summer 1945. Japan's situation grew increasingly desperate. the American Navy and Air Forces had taken full control of the Pacific. City after city was bombed into ruins. In Tokyo, the night sky burned red from massive firestorms. Civilian casualties mounted by the day. Yet Japan's military leadership refused to surrender. Clinging to the code of death before dishonor, they ordered their people to fight until the last soldier. Teenagers and the elderly were drawn into military training. Every town, every village prepared for resistance. Meanwhile, the United States was preparing a decisive step. Operation Downfall, the planned invasion of Japan's home islands, was drafted. But the estimated cost was staggering. Millions of American and Japanese lives could be lost. At that moment, one of history's most controversial decisions was made. On August 6, 1945, just after 8 a.m., an American bomber dropped an atomic bomb over Hiroshima. In an instant, the city was engulfed in flames, and tens of thousands were killed. 3 days later, a second atomic bomb was dropped on Nagasaki. The cities were reduced to ash. No one could stop the tears of the civilian population. For the first time, Emperor Hirohito addressed his people over the radio. His voice seared into the hearts of millions of Japanese. To continue the war would mean the annihilation of our nation. Though we may not have been defeated, we must now endure the unendurable and bring this war to an end. On September 2, 1945, aboard the American battleship USS Missouri in Tokyo Bay, Japanese representatives signed the Act of Surrender. The bloodiest chapter of the Second World War came to a close. Yet this ending was not remembered as a triumph, but as a moment when humanity grasped the true cost of war. The Pacific Campaign had consumed millions of lives and turned entire cities into ashes. When American soldiers returned home, their memories remained scarred by the swamps of the jungle, the cries of kamikaze pilots, and the blood-soaked beaches of Iwo Jima. For the Japanese people, the price of peace was measured in their own lives, in tears and in silence. The war ended, but only the sound of weapons fell silent. The wounds in people's hearts did not heal. Millions of fathers and sons, mothers and children never returned. Cities lay in ashes. For the first time, the world witnessed the horror of atomic fire. Japan surrendered, yet within its people awoke a renewed understanding of the most precious thing of all, the value of life and peace. For America, it was not simply a victory, but the end of a great trial. The war that began at Pearl Harbor ended in Hiroshima and Nagasaki, but it left humanity with an eternal lesson. Blood spilled for power and domination will never bring justice. History will never forget the voices of the fallen soldiers on the sands of Iwo Jima, the desperate cries of the kamikaze at Okinawa, or the tears of the children in Hiroshima. Today, we still hear those silent voices. They whisper only one word to us: never again. War is the moment when a nation's voice is silenced and dreams are turned to ashes. Peace is worth more than all of that. That is why we must remember the past and protect the future. For every generation deserves to live beneath a peaceful sky. Scene: modern Japan in peace. Children playing in a park. White doves rising into the sky. On the screen, the final words appear. War is history's tragic lesson. Ensuring it is never repeated is our duty. War is history's most tragic lesson. The tears of millions, the ruined cities, and the lost generations remind us how precious peace truly is. Today, we still hear those silent voices. It must never be repeated. Friends, if this story made you reflect, subscribe to our channel. Leave a comment below and tell us which city you're watching from. Your thoughts matter to us. Every comment connects us with new stories, and every subscription gives us new inspiration. Let us remember history together and build a peaceful future together. On screen, the final text appears. Subscribe, leave a comment, share where you're watching from,